Hot dogs, bacon, ham, sausage can cause cancer. That's according to the World Health Organization. Experts say there is now sufficient evidence that eating processed meats is, quote, carcinogenic to humans. Joining us now is Dr. Devi, who maybe you could bring some calm to the situation.
Sure.
Should we just stop eating bacon and hot dogs altogether?
I don't think we need to stop eating those things. I mean, I myself don't even want to give up eating bacon, but we do have to worry about eating it every single day, right? So in this report, they were looking at people who are having a lot of red meat and processed meats on a daily basis. So what they're talking about is about 2 slices of bacon per day. And then there are a couple of things to think about.
Hold on. First off, I always call pork white meat. I don't call it red meat.
That's true. I know. I do too. But it's sort of in that gray area, right, where it kind of has some overlap. It depends on the cuts and probably for the purposes of this study, the processing, itself.
Okay.
Dr. Devi, what's the problem here? Is it the red meat or the processing? I get concerned about any kind of processed food these days. Is that where the potential problem is?
Well, this study looked at both things, right? So for red meat, they didn't have as much evidence as they did for the processing. So it seems like if you had to pick between the two, the processing might be what you have to be a little bit more concerned about. But there are a couple of other things to think about in the study, right? So generally, I mean, this is a synthesis of a whole bunch of different studies. So what we do, let's say there's a pharmaceutical trial. We usually take people who have never had the drug in the first place and then split it up into 2 groups, right? And one group gets the drug and then you compare to see what the results are. But in this case, you're not really comparing people, right? You're not giving one group of people hot dogs or red meats every day and then checking to see what happens. You're just letting people kind of follow their usual patterns, which people who eat hot dogs every day might be very different than vegetarians.
But the World Health Organization put processed meat, bacon, hot dogs into the same risk category as smoking and diesel engine exhaust. That's how they view people who eat.
They put it right next to herbicide, I think.
Well, there is some confusion because of the wording, right? So they put it in sufficient evidence, but it doesn't mean that your actual risk factors are as high. So what they said is that based on reviewing all these studies, that your risk of developing, let's say, colon cancer goes up by 18%. Now that's a little bit confusing because it's not going up by that absolute percentage. So if your risk of having colon cancer is about 5% to begin with, and it goes up by 18%, it's still a little bit less than 6%.
Can I ask a really
still very low
basic question?
Sure.
Other than potentially making you overweight and obese if you eat too much bacon or hot dogs or whatever, what is it about eating these foods causes the cancer?
Well, we don't know, right? So that's part of the problem, that we don't know what's involved. I mean, they took a lot of different types of processing and put it together. These were 800 papers approximately that they linked together. And sometimes that can be, kind of like comparing apples and oranges. So I think, the general take-home message is, of course, if you're eating red meat or processed foods, try to limit it, try to live a healthy lifestyle, right? I don't think this is so shocking. But at the same time,
didn't we already know that hot dogs and bacon were bad for you? I feel like I grew up
there's a little bit of that, yeah.
Maybe. No, I didn't grow up thinking that. I mean, bacon, what's wrong with
it? You thought you could eat all the hot dogs you wanted?
No, but I think that's harsh, and especially to the agricultural industry, to say that they're bad for you. But when Dr. Devi will be the first to point out that everything in moderation. And meat suppliers, by the way, processors, they have spoken out about this. They're arguing that meat is essential for protein and vitamins.
Well, that's true, right? And it depends also on your cut of meat. So if you're talking about a filet mignon, that's going to be a little bit different because that's very lean beef, for example.
Well, so the industry also called into question the findings here. Is there anything that raises questions for you about how the studies were done?
Well, like we were talking about, right? So the fact that it's observational, so you're not really separating the people into these different groups and testing them. And then also putting together so many studies is difficult. So I think that's another factor that we have to consider. But like you said, I think this is still something, I mean, people should be a little bit concerned about in the sense that eating processed foods every day could add to your risk. But also, to be fair, just back when, about 100 years ago, people won the Nobel Prize for processing foods.
All right, Dr. Devi, thank you for clearing it up and bringing some calm to the situation, especially during breakfast. All right.